D.T. Suzuki on the teaching of the Lankavatara. Where does the Lankavatara stand, then? It may be classed in a way with the Avatamsaka, inasmuch as it teaches the absolute idealism of the latter and is the disclosure of the inner mind of the Buddha. But it has a special message to give to the Buddhist world in a manner characteristic of the sutra. It is devoid of all symbolism, quite different in this respect from the Avatamsaka. It is, instead, straightforward in expression and notes down in a somewhat sketchy style almost all the ideas belonging to the different schools of Mahayana Buddhism. It is partly for this reason that the sutra requires a great deal of learning, as well as an insight to understand all the details thoroughly. The principal thesis of the Lankavatara, however, may be regarded as summarized in the following passage, quote, "Again, O Mahamati, there may be other Shramanas and Brahmins who hold the following views: that all things have no self-substance, that they are like a cloud, like a circle traced out by a revolving firebrand, or like the air castle of the Gandharvas, that they are unborn, that they are like Maya or mirage, or the moon in water, or a dream, that external objects are manifestations of the mind, erroneously perceived due to false discrimination since time immemorial, that by thus viewing the world, one ceases to be conditioned by the false discrimination worked out in one's mind. One does away with the terminology belonging to such false discrimination and with the signification of words such as predicating and predicated. That when one understands that the body, property, and abiding place are the particularizations of the Alavijnana, one is freed from ideas such as perceived and perceiving, attains to a state of no image or shadowlessness. O Mahamati, such a bodhisattva mahasattva will before long realize the sameness of samsara and nirvana. O Mahamati, by deeds of great love or mahakaruna, skillful means or upaya, and effortlessness, a bodhisattva reviews all beings and knows that they are like Maya. They resemble shadows. They are not produced by causes. And further, knowing that the world exists not outside the mind, he leads a life of formlessness. As he gradually goes up the higher stages, or bhumi, he will realize a state of samadhi where he comes to the understanding that the triple world is mind itself, or Sita Mantra. The samadhi he attains is called Maya-like, or Myopama. He will further free himself from all images, perfect his knowledge, and realize that things are unborn, and, entering upon the samadhi called Vajravimbopama, will obtain the Buddha body. He will, always abiding in the suchness of things, manifest himself in transformed bodies. He will be endowed with the 10 powers, the 6 psychic faculties, and the 10-fold self-mastery. O Mahamati, adorned with upaya, or skillful means, he will visit all the Buddha lands, and, disengaged from the philosophical doctrines, as well as from the Sita, Manas, and Vijnana, he will experience a revulsion, or pararitti, within himself, and by degrees will attain the Tathagata body. Therefore, O Mahamati, if a bodhisattva wishes to attain the Tathagata body, he should keep himself away from the skandhas, dhatus, ayatanas, siddham, causation, works, discipline, birth, staying and passing, and cease from discriminating, philosophizing, and abide in the thought of the mind only, or Citta-matra. When the triple world is surveyed by the bodhisattva, he perceives that this existence is due to memory that has been accumulated since the beginningless past, but wrongly interpreted. He recognizes that Buddhahood is a state imageless, unborn, and to be inwardly experienced by oneself when the mind becomes fully controlled and purposeless deeds are accomplished. Like the Sintamani or wish gem, he will now manifest himself in a variety of forms according to the needs of sentient beings and lead them to the view that only mind is, and then gradually compel them to ascend the stages. Therefore, O Mahamati, let the Bodhisattva discipline himself well in the work of self-realization." Close quote. Being full of technical terms, the reader may find the import of the passage here quoted difficult to understand, but as we go on, it will, I hope, grow fully intelligible. In the meantime, the following paraphrase will help the reader to get a general idea of it. The highest stage of Buddhist experience is reached when a man comes to realize that things are devoid of a self-substance, or that they are not, after all, final, irreducible realities, for they never have been created. They are what they are from beginningless past. If we say that they have come into existence, or that they exist as we perceive them through the senses, this will imply that individualization is ultimate fact, which, however, is contrary to the truth inwardly perceived by an enlightened mind. Individualization is due to discrimination, or vikalpa, which is falsely interpreted and adhered to by a heart blinded by desires and passions. And from this fact there issue all kinds of human tragedies and comedies. What really exists is mind, which is above all discrimination, that is, above logic and analysis. When this mind, with a capital M, which is designated in the sutra as alaya or alaya vijnana, is discriminated by an erroneously self-created and self-reflecting agent called manas, this world of particulars develops in its misleading fullness and richness. Discrimination is the result of memory, or vasana, accumulated from the unknown past. Vasana literally means, quote, perfuming, or, quote, fumigation. That is, it is a kind of energy that is left behind when an act is accomplished and has the power to rekindle the old and seek out new impressions. Through this perfuming, reflection takes place, which is the same thing as discrimination, and we have a world of opposites and contraries with all its practical consequences. The triple world, so called, is therefore the shadow of a self-reflecting and self-creating mind. Hence the doctrine of, quote, mind only, or siddhamatra. Reality as it is, or mind in itself, is also called the suchness, or tathata, or sameness, or samatha of things, as herein are unified all forms of antithesis which constitute our actual world of sense and logic. The Bodhisattva abides in this suchness which transcends all our reasonings and discriminations. And because he abides in this transcendental realm, his all-loving heart works without the taint of selfishness and one-sided attachment, using all contrivances, or upaya, whereby to save his fellow beings from pain and suffering. These works of his are called purposeless, for the reason that they are not actuated by any egoistic interests or desires or motives. They are called out from the abundance of his inner goodness, which now shines forth free from all defilements of intellection as well as of carnation. The world is like Maya, or mirage. As his intellect is no longer snared in the meshes of dualistic logic, he intuitively perceives that the world of particularization is no more than the reflection of his own mind. His life is thus designated as formless, or imageless, and his deeds effortless and purposeless. Yet he never relaxes his efforts to benefit all sentient beings. He knows from his transcendental position that samsara and nirvana are the same, and yet he knows not when to stop working for the realization of the highest ideals, and also for universal salvation. His inner mind is then said to be abiding in the samadhi known as myopama, or mirage-like. This seems to be the highest state of spiritual attainment realizable by a mind encased in a human body. But there is still a higher state to be attained by the Buddhist. There is a higher body called Buddhakaya, which is obtained when a man enters upon Vajravimbopama Samadhi. When this is obtained, one is endowed with the 10 powers, the 6 psychic faculties, and the 10-fold self-mastery. He is then able to transform himself into various forms in order to benefit sentient beings in accordance with their desires and circumstances. He is also able to visit all the Buddha lands and perform all Buddha deeds. The main object of the Buddhist life is thus seen to consist in having a certain spiritual revulsion, whereby we are able to leap from the dualistic shore of this individualistic world to the other shore of nirvana, where there are no egoistic impulses and desires in evidence any longer, though this means not at all the death of a loving heart itself. To effect this revulsion, spiritual discipline is needed, which finally leads up to a certain exalted inner condition. Enlightenment, self-realization, or the opening of an inner eye is the name given to it. The Lankavatara calls it Pratyamarya Jnanagochara, or Svasdidanta, and the main object of its teaching is to acquaint us with the fact of an inner perception which causes a spiritual revolution in our whole life. The reason why the Lankavatara is considered to be historically and doctrinally so closely related to Zen Buddhism is based on this fact that herein, most emphatically asserted, is the importance of an inner realization as the source of all the religious virtues and blessings. Zen, of all the schools of Buddhism, is preeminently the religion of enlightenment. If the Buddhist life is to be regarded as consisting of prajna, or higher knowledge, or bodhi, or wisdom, and karuna, or love, Zen indeed makes most of the prajna element, at least during its first stages of training, and this prajna which it teaches is to be attained by transcending the relativity of worldly knowledge, which will free our desires and passions from the entanglements of the individualistic world conception. It does not teach to destroy all the impulses, instincts, and affective factors that make up the human heart. It only teaches to clear up our intellectual insight from erroneous discriminations and unjustifiable assertions. For when this is done, the heart knows by itself how to work out its native virtues. This is the position of Zen Buddhism, and in the following pages I wish to develop what the Lankavatara states on this subject, rather generally in the first part concerning the nature of the inner realization, and in the second and third part concerning its relation to logic, psychology, and the practical life.